What's up, former party people? This is Jerry, the one who actually combs his hair on the A is for Alcoholic podcast. Now, if you're finding value in listening to the AIFA podcast every week and you want to support sharing it with others, we invite you to become a sustaining monthly or per show contributor. Go to patreon.com/AIFA. It's super easy and it only takes a quick moment. It's about as easy as buying one of those pre-cooked space chickens from the grocery store, taking it outside, giving it a big old kiss, and kicking it into traffic. Why would you do that? Anyway, you do you, and I'll do me. Again, go to patreon.com/AIFA. And with that, people, let's start the show.
A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John, and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry, and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism, one letter at a time.
I mean, yeah, we're in sync. I'll be Lance Bass.
I'll be Fatone. Was he in sync, or is that a Backstreet Boy?
Man, Fatone was dope. His name was dope though. Fat one.
Yeah. AJ McLean. Is he a
sure.
Backstreet, or is he? Because I know he's a sober dude.
Is he?
I did, yeah. I reached out to him to see if he wanted to be on the podcast when I found out he was sober, and I haven't heard back from him. I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure he's a busy Backstreet Boy.
We'll see what happens. Yeah, they're very busy. They've got a lot going on.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I don't know what it's like to be a Backstreet Boy or a Backstreet Man. Yeah.
I mean, I've been back on some streets.
Yeah, I've been.
I've literally had my back on the street quite a number of times. Yeah.
Oh Jesus, yeah, on my face in the gutter.
Yeah, on my face. Yeah. It's just like sleeping, just taking a little sojourn, a little nap.
Mm-hmm. Just a little repose, respite.
Repose. That's the word. Respite.
The word?
A nice mid-afternoon outside respite.
It's a beautiful afternoon out there. Did you go outside today yet, or at all? Or,
no? It's off and on today in Oregon because it's like in the mid-60s, cloudy. Tomorrow will be a lot nicer. I run tomorrow. I ran yesterday. I did almost 5, hit a wall.
That's good.
With some stuff, and now I'm ready to go. Yeah, almost 5. 475 was my day.
Right on. So we are here as A is for Alcoholic. We are here to talk, do some sober talking. And
sober talking.
Some sober talking.
That's
different from
walking.
Yeah, it's different from jive talking, which is the Bee Gees song. I don't know if you're a Bee Gees fan.
Oh, right.
Jive talking.
I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I like when their music comes on. I'm like, oh, that's a good cut. But I don't have a poster or a T-shirt. I'd wear a T-shirt if someone gave me one.
Would you?
Absolutely. You know what? Actually, now that we're on this, when I was in the first grade, I had a fucking Bee Gees lunchbox. I did.
Really?
Because I loved disco music when I was a little kid. And my mom, for some reason, the Bee Gees, maybe they had a movie out or something. Was it?
Saturday Night Fever.
They did the soundtrack to, and I think that I thought that was dope. Because I distinctly remember having a yellow plastic Bee Gees lunchbox, and then I lost the thermos.
Uh-oh.
That shit's gone. Yeah. I mean, it probably still exists if it hasn't been crushed. I mean, plastic lasts forever. Yeah.
Losing the thermos. It would be the first of many drinks you would lose in the course of your life.
Thanks a lot, Bee Gees. Thanks a lot, Gibb Brothers.
Yeah. So today on the old program, the letter is U, and we're gonna talk about. I'd like to talk about. We'll see where it goes. I have no idea. Sometimes these conversations do go off the rails, but. I'd like to talk about the unlikely allies that we that I know that I have gathered, and people I would never associate with in drinking life that I associate with in sobriety. I think one of the things that happens in one of the things that happens in drinking is that our world gets really small, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is just because we can't manage it any other way. I don't know about you, but I certainly would find it just easier to shirk responsibilities, hang out with the very few people. Even during some of the fun times, it wasn't about meeting new people. It was about maybe going to a bar and like imposing myself on new people, but it certainly wasn't about like, do you know what I mean?
I love imposing yourself on people. Just being like, I am here. Mm-hmm. Witness me.
So I think that's one of those things where in sobriety, it was almost like I had to ask for help, right? That's how I got sober. So I have to ask for help, and I'm not going to find help in the same place that I found drinking. And so you just create these new relationships with people who come from all walks of life, especially, you know, in the program that you and I prescribe to. Anybody can walk into to the building. Anybody can walk into the meeting. Anybody can join, you know, and you just start to realize like, oh shit, this alcoholism thing affects all kinds of people. And it's, I mean, you're, not to bring up too much, but like your home group for a minute was LGBTQ, right? Like it was. Yeah. And so these are not people that you necessarily would associate on a regular basis. Like
not that I avoided.
No, not that you avoided them.
I know what you mean though, but it wasn't a circle I ran in necessarily. But I felt really comfortable in that group.
Yeah. And I found that like, the same thing here in my area. I live in a community of much older people, just generally speaking. I am not these people are all in their 50s and 60s. And so I found myself surrounded by all these quote unquote old people. And, I think it was probably for the best. I think I probably found more stable and, calm in these older people than I might have otherwise. But it's just, it's a unique thing. I mean, when we were drinking, who did we hang out with? Just us.
Just us. I mean, we drank in close proximity though to gay people and old people.
Yeah. I mean, we were not opposed to it, but it was just, you go where you feel comfortable, and where if you don't know somebody or you don't know something, I mean, I would just avoid it. I would just run from it.
Right. Well, and the thought is too, I was thinking like I drank in gay bars. I drank in bars, old people bars, but I never learned anything in them. I never learned how to do things in there other than to drink or what to call the glass I'm drinking out of. Do you know what I mean? Or
right.
The shit in the well is the cheap shit, and they call it the well or the rack or whatever. You know, those are the bar shit. I learned bar shit in bars.
Yeah,
but I never learned how to do anything in my life in a bar. Not necessarily.
And isn't that amazing? Like, I'm still blown away sometimes by the fact that like I didn't know how to do anything. And I would still wake up and function on some like base level.
I mean, I must have learned some shit. I think I learned bigger lessons than smaller lessons. I want to rephrase that. I didn't learn coping mechanisms, and I didn't necessarily learn how to better myself as a person in a bar. But I did learn things. It's just like the conversation we were having earlier with Mishka, and he was saying like alcoholics are like the toughest fucking people in the world. You know, so I learned how to be resilient through my active alcoholism.
Right.
He brings that point up a lot. But you're right. It's these unlikely allies, these people who would not normally mix, you know, to use the language of the program. But I think it's all out of desperation, and then you find your common thread, right? I mean, you and I would have ended up, I know I've said before and we've talked about it, I think I was saying it to Dirk when we were doing the VH program, is that I was like, well, our common thread was alcohol. Which, now that I've thought about it out of context, I sat down and thought about it, I was like, well, no, it wasn't our common thread. That just happened to be the pastime that you and I were most passionate about. It was like,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? But we had a common thread in the sense that we both had similar experiences growing up. We liked a lot of the same things, and we were at that young enough age where I'm like, you like Morrissey and The Simpsons, I like Morrissey and The Simpsons, let's be friends. Oh, and also you like to get fucked up? Now we're going to be really good friends.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think but I wouldn't call us unlikely. I think we would have ended up being friends regardless of what. You know, just because you and I are not unlikely allies. We're like two sensitive boys.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like very sensitive men now, you know? But for me to sit in a room, or even for me to be at work and talk to someone and find out they're in recovery as well, and I know we have this shared common thing, this thing that's in us that compels us to do things a specific way, I feel a lot of kinship with people I would have normally have never felt kinship with. Like you said, old people, or, you know, just like the crazy wild fucking juggalo dude, you know, sitting next to me in the meeting, you know, with like some fucking, you know, I was gonna say face tattoos, but I have one, so I'm like, yo, welcome to the club, homie. Where'd you get yours? But
Well,
you know, it's just people I normally would have judged in the past. I ended up becoming really close with, you know.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a level of judgment that gets shed, especially when you talk to somebody who maybe lives on the street. You know, I haven't come in contact. I haven't been to any of the I don't want to say scarier, but any of the heavier meetings in some of the bigger cities. But I have talked to a couple of people who were struggling with housing. I've talked to people who were very well off and very, very well off. And the conversations were very similar, you know, about sobriety.
Yeah.
The conversations did not... It was like, okay, I have this problem. Well, how did you deal with this problem? Well, I struggled with it. I drank. I slept on the street. I slept in my car. Other people will say, oh, well, I went to rehab and I was able to, you know, take 30 days off and then figure it all out. And so I'm just always blown away. Like when I think about the people that I know now and where they came from, I mean, crank snorting bikers and, you know, Catholic priests and housewives and people who work in television and people who work in the wine business and all of these things, you know, it just, and I feel like you said, that immediate kinship when you find out, oh, okay, cool. So yeah, so you're in real estate or you do this or you do that, but like, okay, so we can talk. I don't even need to say like, hey, what do you do? I don't need to.
Right.
That's not even that's not the interesting question anymore.
No, it's you and I now have a thread because we're both really familiar with that hard part of ourselves. We're both very familiar with the hard part of ourselves and very familiar with like how hard life can be at that point. So at this point, I don't have to be like, yeah, exactly. Be like, so how's the housing market? Man, I don't give a fuck about the housing market. Do you know what I mean? But I'm trying to find my indoor to get comfortable with you, or you know. And every personality differs. It's not like I'm going to have an immediate bond with someone. I just am aware. I almost actually, and I don't know, man, I almost actually forgive other recovery, like other sober addicts and other sober alcoholics. I give them a little more leeway sometimes. Even other alcoholics who are actively alcoholic, I may be annoyed at them, but in going through this, not even just this program, but this process of getting sober, I give them a little more leeway. Like, for example, there was a guy that worked in the same industry as I do in my town, and he had a really hard relapse. He had been sober for a long period of time. He had a really hard relapse. His life, of course, fell the fuck apart completely 100%. And in this relapse, he was trying to find money to get more of whatever substance he was using. So he plagiarized some art from a coworker of mine and said that he did it and was offering to tattoo it on people or offering to print it out and sell it as a print in order for him to get money so he could buy whatever he needed to get high. And everybody jumped on his ass. Everybody was like, fuck that guy. I hope that, you know, just flat out, it was all vitriol. Just fuck that guy. People were writing him on Facebook, I hope you die, and just awful mean shit to this guy, right? And I get it. Like, one side of me, I understand the anger. Like, I understand being like, yo, that you crossed the line in this little industry we have. But the other side of me was like, I get it, though. Like, I don't condone where you're coming from, but I understand where you're coming from. And you're in a hole right now. And so anything you can do, you have to do because you're desperate. You're in a hole. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think people who haven't felt that style, that type of desperation, who have felt their own desperation, but maybe nothing to that depth or that meter, they don't get it like the way I would. But see, I don't want to separate myself from other people when I say that. But I guess my point is I understood it more. So in my mind, mentally, deeply inside, I gave this person a little more leeway. Instead of getting my pitchfork and my torch and being like, let's fucking skin him. You know, I was just like, yo, man, that dude is going through some shit. he shouldn't have done that. That was fucked up. But like, I understand the shit he's going through because I've done some shit in my life that I am super ashamed of. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel exactly the same way. I know that I've had conversations with people who are not alcoholics about something that somebody else has done, and I have to kind of go, well, somebody wouldn't do that unless they were in a really desperate spot. Somebody wouldn't do that unless they really felt like it was the only way for them to get out of the spot that they were in. And to be an addict and not have what you're addicted to is pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely terrifying when you're in it. When you're in the hole.
When you're in it.
You know?
When you're in the hole, it's terrifying. And so I would always be like, well, let's look at it that way, you know. And then there's the old there but for the grace of God go I adage.
Right.
And it really helps me step back from being angry and judgmental towards somebody's actions because and my girlfriend always reminds me of this a lot too, is she'll say, it's not the person that I have the problem with, it's their behavior. Yes. It's their behavior. And so this is something that I have worked on and still sometimes struggle, but even with close friends of mine who still drink, right? Like, okay, well, it's not them that I'm frustrated with. It's not them that I'm bothered with. It's the behavior. And even trying to have a conversation with that person and say, hey, man, your behavior really doesn't work with me. Or, hey, I really don't like when you do this. That I know that that's not always going to get through to them, right?
Yeah, I'm making a note of that because I love it. It's such a common sense thing to say, and I fucking spell everything horribly. It's not the person I have a problem with; it's their behavior. I haven't thought of putting it within that context. At least I haven't recently. You know, and so I made a post-it so I could stick it to my dry erase board because I do love that, and it's very pragmatic. It's very to the fucking point. It's like, it's not you. Well, sometimes it is you, not you, but you know what I mean? Sometimes it is the other person, and fuck them. They just entirely, I don't like them because I'm a human being and I'm stuck with those things sometimes. But you're right. Sometimes it's just the way they act. Like, you as a person, you're cool. And what I do is I always, with people's behaviors, I always push it off like, oh no, I love this person. No, I love this person. This person's really close to me. But they're just fucking make me so mad at them. Do you know what I mean? Like, and blah, 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 blah. Instead of rephrasing it, recontextualizing it to, it's not them as a person. It's the way they act.
Yeah.
You know, or their behavior, you know. So, I wrote it down.
Which is not to say that if that behavior doesn't work for you, you have to tolerate it because it's not them.
Fuck them.
Yeah. Seriously. I mean, you just say, that's not acceptable around me if you want to act that way. And even there's been times where I haven't done it directly, but I don't respond to that behavior when it comes my way. So if somebody's being, say, flaky because I know that they're drinking and they don't follow through when they say they're going to follow through, or they don't show up when they say they're going to show up, and then they come around and like, okay, I'm ready to do that thing now. I just go, oh, I'm sorry, that window's gone. I don't have that time available. You know, I'm not interested, nor am I willing to drop everything and say, oh, okay, cool, you're ready now, let's go. Like, I'm not interested in being a puppy. But so maybe that's still some sort of passive enabling because I'm not bringing up the behavior that bothers me, but directly. But it's like, also I don't know always that bringing that behavior up to them is going to be helpful unless they're ready.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Because I deal with similar things in my life as well, and I find that just not engaging at all in any way tends to make me feel a lot better. So if someone is trying to start shit with me because they're feeling unhappy or they're frustrated or they're having a hard time, if they're trying to actively engage me to get me to argue with them, I've been making a really active stance to just back away and not be part of it at all. And it tends to make me feel a lot better about life than actively engaging. So, I mean, it depends on what you want out of this back and forth with that. In my opinion, what I want with this back and forth out of this person, where I can call them out and be like, yo, your behavior's whack, and it fucking bums me out. But then I know that I'm gonna need to have some time to sit down and unpack that shit too. You know, because we're gonna be having a fucking talk. You know.
Yeah.
Or I can just back off and be like, look, you're unhappy. I'm sorry you're unhappy. I just can't participate in your unhappiness or your flakiness or whatever it is, behavior it is that's bothering me. Where's the deal breaker? Where's that last straw, you know? And it's all like, it's up to you, how you feel.
Or you can be unhappy and you can be upset, but you certainly can't yell at me or in the room around me. You know, and I mean, depending on what it is, and it's a lot harder when it's people who are close to you. It's a lot harder when it's people you are in a relationship with or related to. You know,
right. And we all deserve respect. Everybody, even assholes, to some extent, deserve some respect. That's a weird statement for me to throw out there because I have to blanket the whole motherfucker.
I know.
We all deserve respect, and so I feel like, yeah, like if you're feeling like you're not being respected, you don't deserve that. Like, you deserve to be treated at least humanely, you know? Now it's just getting deep, though. It's getting deep.
Well, you can't.
Kierkegaard waters.
You can't. But if you don't treat, even if somebody is behaving in in a bad way, and you don't treat them with respect, I mean, you're not going to be able to. If this is a relationship you want to continue, you're not going to be able to cultivate and develop that in any meaningful way if I'm not willing to show them some respect. Because say somebody's yelling at me, they're yelling at me because they're angry at me or angry at a situation. It's because they're afraid or they're feeling hurt. So right. I mean, we can agree that like anger is just fear that's being projected outward.
Right, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
There's always a caveat.
I mean, it's just, yeah, there always is. And it really just depends on what you're willing to manage. At the end of the day, it all really breaks down to these really simple kind of things, doesn't it? I mean, it's like, what is manageable to you? What is manageable to you, and what are you willing to invest into? You know? Like, what are you willing to invest your time into? It's just like, hey, man, it's a sobriety podcast. Was I willing to manage my time into alcohol? And was my life manageable with alcohol? Do you know what I mean? So I had to break it down. Like, this is not working, you know?
Yeah. And
so I can look at people that way, too, and be like, this is not working. I don't want to have a blowout with you, but I'm definitely going to, like, take a more passive role in your life because this is unmanageable for me. This just bums me the fuck out.
There are other things and other people and other ways of communicate, other relationships that I want to be more involved in.
Right. You know? That are more beneficial for me and this other person.
And also, I'm Jerry, I'm so sorry. I didn't start this at the top of the hour, and I forgot to tell our listeners that Mishka Shubaly is going to be on. We're going to put him on. The conversation we had with him earlier will be at the end of this episode.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's why I was talking about Mishka. And I was like,
it's
yeah,
okay.
You brought that up yet.
But so I don't want to derail the conversation, but I just want to make sure that we know.
No.
Mishka Shubaly just put out an audiobook called Cold Turkey, How to Quit Without AA or Rehab, How to Quit Drinking Without AA or Rehab. He's written a bunch of best-selling Kindle singles. He's a singer-songwriter. I put him in the same vein as, you know, Tom Waits and Mark Lanigan, and, you know, he has a lot of dark, brooding, gravelly-throated music, songs about drinking and songs about loss and love.
Well, that's how I found him, actually. Yeah. I found him drinking. When you were talking to him and you're like, hey, I found you through this or that or however, I found him because Doug Stanhope's podcast, Doug used one of Mishka's songs for the intro, and it's that "Am I the Only One Drinking Tonight?" And I was still drinking when I heard that song, and I was like, holy shit, someone wrote a song about me. Because I loved the sentiment of like, really, I'm the only one here drinking? Because how many times did you feel that? I mean, I don't know if
so many.
I mean,
yes.
Okay, because like, I wasn't really, like, once I got back to Arizona and had the family and my daughter and my wife, like, I wasn't in the bar scene anymore. Like, I had to live like this other type of life, and so we would go out to like family parties and shit, and I would just get shit-faced every time and then be like, what, am I the only one fucking drinking at this 2-year-old's birthday party? What the fuck? You know, what, everybody here is just a bunch of Mormons now? So I had found him through that, and then I went into recovery. I got sober, and then I had started. Do you know what I mean? Like more and more, kind of looking them up on the internet, and trying to figure them out, because I wanted to go back and revisit that song and see what context it had. And then I realized, oh shit, this dude wrote a bunch of books and.
Yeah. So he was nice enough to join us and talk about his new book, and as somebody who went through a very different path of recovery than him, I have nothing but respect for his opinion and his writing and his approach. So
yeah,
it was
absolutely.
super awesome. I do also want to tell everybody, Jerry, that we have a sponsor to the program. We do. You know we do.
I know. I'm just play acting for the commercial. Let's do this.
All right. So for the commercial, Jerry, is there something interfering with your happiness, preventing you from achieving your goals?
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah, a bunch of shit.
Yeah, a bunch of shit. So our sponsor is BetterHelp, HELP. And they are an online counseling service. I just had my first online video chat meeting with my counselor this morning, and it was great and it was easy, and we went back and forth. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can start communicating in under 24 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional counseling done securely online. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's counselor network, which may not be locally available in many areas. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Don't you want to start living a happier life today, Jerry?
Fuck yeah, right now. Get that BetterHelp. I probably shouldn't say bad words during the ad.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll find out from them.
The ad ended there.
Well,
wait,
I just want to say...
You're still holding the...
So visit betterhelp.com/AIFA. That's try better, HELP, and join over 500,000 people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. The special offer for A is for Alcoholic listeners get 10% off your first month at trybetterhelp.com/AIFA.
Yeah.
Get happy.
Get happy. Or get content. I like content.
Yeah, I hear you.
Just feel content.
Just get in
that sweet spot. Just click
sometimes
right into that
the sweet spot is the best. I mean, you always talked about that with me too, and it just finding that contentment. It doesn't have to be high and low, but
the sweet spot.
I will say that
we're riding high right now, buddy.
The counselor was really helpful, and she was super cool. And we went back and forth and texted back and forth a little bit about what my previous therapy was, and our whole conversation today was just kind of about what I want to do and what is my for me it's become quantifiable things. So she's like, well, what do you want to achieve with this? And I said, okay, that's good. So she's like, I'm going to send you a worksheet. And I tend to like worksheets because I don't know if that's like a fourth step thing or something, but it just makes more sense to me.
I got a worksheet for my fourth step, yeah.
But yeah, so check it out. BetterHelp.com/AIFA. And now, back to the show.
So anyway, I'm an alcoholic.
But yeah.
So I says to Mabel, I says.
Is that The Simpsons? Is that Bart Simpson?
Uh-huh.
It was one of those non sequiturs, like coming back from a commercial, right?
Anyway, I says to Mabel, I says, yeah.
But I am always blown away by meeting somebody and going, oh, you too?
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, usually they don't wear a t-shirt. You know what I'm saying, though? Like, usually, yeah. It always blows me away, too. And I always find that those unlikely allies. I think what we need to do, what I would like to see as a culture, is we need to drop this, not just the stigma, but the stereotype of what an alcoholic is. Okay. And I think the common trope of what an alcoholic is, because I think it causes more harm than it does work as a signifier.
What is the trope?
fucking homeless dude shitting his pants rolling around the ground. And that dude's just as much of an alcoholic as I am. And I'm just as much an alcoholic as that guy, right?
But
like, we both understand that. But I think to a lot of people who could go looking for help, that idea of, oh, I'm not an alcoholic because I'm not a homeless dude rolling around in his own shit. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so, well, I don't need to get help for this, and I'm doing just fine. I've only had 5 or 6 DUIs. I'm great. You know what or not 5 or 6, that's a lot, but they had the 3 or whatever, you know. And so I think this idea of this rock bottom desperation, down low, end of the line shit, it just, I don't know, man. I think we need to just say, like, let that shit go. You know, those people exist, you know, and I want to give them, do you know what I mean? Like, I want to give them their credence as well. But then there's people like you and I exist, who we call mid-bottom.
Right.
High bottom, low bottom, you know? And I understand they're signifiers, but at times they can be really kind of counterproductive. Like, is my mid-bottom doesn't have as much significance as another person's low bottom? Like, should I not learn from them and should they not learn from me? You know? So it's weird, man.
I don't think it's helpful either to compare pain. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's great. Exactly. Yeah.
We don't have to, you know, my pain is not worse than yours because I had legal troubles or it's all relative. It still hurts when you're, even if you don't get any DUIs and even if you don't destroy your marriage and maybe it still hurts, right?
Yes.
So
you still understand that fire and that compulsion that makes you return to the same thing that you're using to cause your problems and then solve your problems. You know, you just keep returning to this thing. So we both have it. You know, we both have it. You may have it a little differently than me. We all understand the sensation of a mild headache. We all get them. We may get them a little different. They may feel a little different, but we understand this word headache means this. Do you know what I'm saying? So although there is this spectrum of alcoholism, which, you know, Mishka brings up as well in his book, and I think I love that part. You know, there's a lot of left or right in culture right now. A lot of black or white. It's either this or that. There's nothing in between. You know, and that's, even when I was little, I always thought that was bullshit. You're either here or there. You're with us or with them. And I'm like, no, it doesn't really. It's never worked that way. Right. You know, it's never worked that way in my life. So this idea of, like, you're either an alcoholic or you're not an alcoholic. Like, there is a gray area in between the two, you know? Like, people come up and tell me all the time, like, well, I got sober. I maybe not had the same problem as you, but I found every time I drank, I couldn't stop drinking. But I didn't drink every night. I didn't drink a fifth every night, or I didn't do these behaviors you did. And I'm like, yeah, but you still drank you still drank alcoholically. For lack of a better term, you know, you drank alcoholically, so. Yeah.
And, you know, I look at somebody like, I read Annie Grace's book, This Naked Mind.
Yeah.
And her whole thing is she posits that alcoholic is not the right term to use. Nobody's an alcoholic, she says. And so she has a whole nother way of looking at it. And I don't think it's any less valid than my way of looking at it and calling myself a sober alcoholic.
Right.
I think if you require a different path, then please let there be a path available for you. You know, I remember reading her book in the beginning and having a little twinge of like, hey, this program that worked for me, and not that she denounced it, but there was just saying like, that is not necessary for you to get sober. And so maybe in that chapter of her book, she wasn't talking to me. She was talking to somebody else who didn't have my experience, and that's fine.
Exactly.
Because
that's a great way of looking at it.
Because 90% of her book, I was like, this is spot on, right? You know, and we talked with Mishka, and the same thing too, where I was like, for a minute, I was like, hey, oh, okay, I see what you're getting at. I was like, maybe, John, don't jump to conclusions and listen a little bit further, you know, because that's me just getting defensive and being like, you can't talk about me like that.
You can't talk about me and my precious program that way, you know. And I'm like, and see, for me, I in the beginning, I would read, like, go online and read the Orange Papers, which is incredibly critical of AA and incredibly critical of that program, and says that it does more damage than help and those things. And I used to get kind of fucked off about it. Like, it kind of worked like, oh, how dare you? This is working for me. And now that I've worked it for a little while, I welcome the criticism because I want to hear it, because I have been critical of everything in my entire life. So why would I put 100% credence into this thing now? Because of fear, or because it helped me get sober, or because I got sober through it? So I see it as this valuable tool that I go back to, that I'm grateful for the people using that tool who showed me how they used it. Now, the program itself, it's an awesome program. It works great for some people, but at the same point, it was the people in the room using the tools that they had learned through the program that showed me how to use these tools as well. I don't know, man. It's just, for me to get defensive about it, it's just the same as like a hardcore Christian being upset that you're shitting on the Bible, or you have a problem with the Bible. Right. Things need to adapt. They need to change. Things need to flex. Like, that's just the way it is. There's no left or right. There's no this or that. It's all, man. It's a goddamn gray rainbow of
a gray rainbow.
Who don't want to be drunk no more. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, gray rainbow. I don't know why I see the gradation. The spectrum in my head has always been shades of gray.
Well, and I think that sometimes I've felt more than one way about it. I haven't always, it's easy to say, well, I've always felt like an alcoholic. And there's been moments where I think I probably always felt like an alcoholic, and I'm fine, defining myself that way. But I would never, if somebody said, hey man, I didn't get sober the way that you got sober, I wouldn't find that dismissive. I would be like, hey, well, what do you mean? Well, what did you do? Yeah. That's always, and my fascination and curiosity is what's an interest in that. Like, what do you mean? You didn't have to do it this way, or you found something different, or maybe there's common threads in all of these things, right? If you're going to use the analogy of religion, like, there's common threads. Right. In many, many religions, right? And there's borrowings, and there's rewritings, and there is reinterpretations and retranslations. And so I feel like the more I read, the more I see that's similar rather than is different. Right. And exactly. So just trying to figure out this thing called life.
Well, right. All soup stocks start with water, man. All soup has to start with water, So if we're doing this, it all has to have this common thread. And this common thread is, I can't fucking drink anymore. Because I just can't. I just can't do this anymore. This is not working. No. This is like actually actively the opposite of working. It's like fucking my shit up. So then we just got to find it from there. What works for there? I honestly think being critical of things is fine. It's just, there are times where I get defensive, and that's when people are being hostile. Hostile is not helpful to anyone unless you're trying to fight a bear or something, I guess. But hostile doesn't work. So hostile, I'm going to close off to. But critical, I always brighten up to criticism, because I'm like, yeah. Because like I said, my whole life I've questioned everything. All of a sudden I'm supposed to walk into this room and take it all 100% without asking questions. That to me is not, I can't do that. It's just not in my personality.
I looked at it too as,
yeah, you did.
When I first went in, it was very much this, I had this feeling of investigative journalism. Like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, what's really going on here? I don't think this is going to work for me, but let's go ahead and check it out, because I'm a detective. And
this little hat with a little press, press thing in your hat band. You just got a flask in your pocket.
Basically, in the fucking blazer, the rumpled trench coat, and the fucking rumpled hat. Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. Yeah. And I'm so glad that I did, and I'm so glad that I was skeptical, and I'm so glad that I wasn't interested in taking it all in all at once. And I mean, and I am so grateful for everything that the people that I have found and the path that I've taken has allowed me to be here and feel as good as I do today.
Yeah.
You know, like I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't say, oh, well, I didn't need that, or I wouldn't have, if only I had known this, I wouldn't have done this, or, I mean, that doesn't help anything. That's like going back and trying to think about like what I should have done doesn't help anything. So.
Right, exactly, yeah. It's just the same as feeling sorry for yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just not productive. It's just an exercise in self-pity. It's just not helpful.
You know?
I mean, if everybody's allowed a little bit, but come on now.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, take some time. Go.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what I mean. You're allowed a little bit every once in a while, but once you start getting a little wild with it, you got to really check yourself. Because it's more me talking to myself. Because once I became aware of that behavior that I was doing that, I've tried my hardest to not do it, and I don't do it as much now that I've noticed that in myself. But
do you think you?
But yeah, there are times where I'm like, man, I fucked it all up. Man. A little too much fucking glug, and now I'm sitting here like a fucking ding dong. You know, like.
Yeah. Do you think it's like it's easy to get addicted to pitying yourself?
Absolutely, because I'm addicted to anger. I'm addicted to all kinds of shit right now. Mm-hmm. Like, especially pity, because you get that dopamine hit, and there's that other voice in your head that's you but not you, you know, that like pats you in the back and goes, it's okay, Johnny, you know, yeah, you really did fuck up, buddy. You fucked up pretty bad, and life isn't working the way it should be working for you because, you know, you fucked it all up, and it'll never work the way you want it to work. You know, that's what the voice would tell me inside. I'd feel kind of good. Like, I'd feel a little good, like, yeah, you're right. You're fucking right. Everybody's gonna be sorry, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would absolutely get addicted to that because I get a little push, you know. It's just like, you know, I like that we interviewed him and we listened to the book because I like referring back to again. Yeah, it makes this great point in the book about cross addiction, about how you replace one addiction for another,
right?
And how he thinks that's bullshit. And I really like that. I felt empowered listening to that. You know, people going, oh, well, now you're addicted to AA. I've literally had people say, what, are you addicted to AA now? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Well, I'm not addicted to AA, or I'm not addicted to recovery. I'm living my life. They'd be like, are you addicted to breathing, you fucking bitch? You know? Yeah. Are you running?
Yeah. Right? Like, well, no,
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a healthy habit. And, what are you, addicted? What are you, just going to run yourself into the ground? Well, you better be careful. You're going to wear... What does he say? Something about the conversation he's having with the overweight dude smoking marbles and drinking whiskey. Yeah, and like, you're really going to blow out your knees. And I'm like, well, I'll worry about that when I get there, man. I was
right.
I had no problem I had no problem blowing out my liver.
Right. I did it gladly for one point, and then just felt sad about it afterwards. But so that cross addiction thing, I know we're kind of going off this path, but that's okay.
Okay.
I think we're past paths. We don't need roads,
right?
We don't need roads, man. But I think that idea of trading one addiction for another. When I heard him, you know, when I heard him say it in the book, I was like, yeah, someone has verbalized that feeling I've had in the past, you know. It's just like me with the Diet Cokes, right? Like, I'm physically addicted to caffeine, and I have an emotional kind of dependence towards... My behavior has an emotional dependence towards it. But it's also one of those things where I'm like, I didn't trade Diet Coke for booze. Do you know what I mean? I may have found a familiar behavior in it, but it's not like... Does that make sense? You know? Or even like your behaviors towards ice cream.
Yeah.
It's not like you need to go to a fucking 12-step for ice cream. You know, or at least you understand and see. Yes. Not yet, exactly. No, and there are people who do go to 12 steps for their
food
issues with food.
Yeah.
I always have to throw this shit in there because I don't want to be a dick. But anyway, I recognize my behavior towards it, and now I'm owning it. So I'm looking at it going, is this a manageable behavior for me? Because once it becomes unmanageable, then I know, okay, this has gotten out of hand. I need to not fuck with it. Just like what you did with ice cream, right? Like, but I also know that, like, if you eat a little bit of ice cream, you're not going to fucking spin out and go fuck... Do you know what I mean?
Probably
go to jail
not.
Because of your ice cream shit, you know?
Probably not. You know, like, so my girlfriend... and I, the way that we've been dealing with the quarantine, and this has a point to it, is that her and I are the only ones we're seeing. So but we don't live together. So
right.
I'll go over to her house, and sometimes almost always she cooks a bunch of food and she'll give me food to take home, and we have a lovely time. And so we spend like 3 days together, and then I come home and she does the work that she does from home and I do what I do. And so this last time she was like, you know what? She buys this ice cream. It's like this Vixen vanilla sort of maple syrup sweetened, no refined sugar, quote unquote healthy. It's still 800 calories for the whole pint. I know this.
Right.
And she'll make little ice cream sundaes that are a little more healthier than normal, right? Put a little of that organic peanut butter and the juice sweetened jelly on there and make these lovely little things. And she's like, you know what, John, I think I'm over it. If you want the ice cream, you can go ahead and have it. She just gave me the pint. We didn't open it. And she's just, and she gave me a couple other things. And she's just like, I just don't want it and I'm not going to eat it. And I said, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, ooh, the ice cream's coming home with me, the whole pint. And so now it's sitting in my freezer.
Get in the fucking car on the way home. You better not.
No, I didn't. It's the problem with these healthy ice creams is you got to thaw them out. You can't dig right into it.
Yeah, they're hard as fuck. Also, why are you eating the whole pint? But go ahead.
Yes. So I didn't eat the whole pint. I haven't opened it yet,
Good.
But it's sitting in there and I'm like, John, what is your behavior going to be around this pint of ice cream? Are you going to fucking throw it in the microwave for a minute and then crush that thing in like 5 minutes and then feel like shit for the next, 40 minutes?
Right.
Or can you have a half a cup or even a cup and be cool? So I don't know.
Can you? This will be your quarantine experiment. And if not, just throw it in the fucking yard. Let it melt. And then nobody can have it.
See, that never occurred to me. It was always like, how am I going to eat this? So I mean, yeah, it's an experiment, but again, if it's a behavior that doesn't get in the way of what you're trying to accomplish, then it's probably okay, right?
Right.
I mean, especially if it's something healthy like exercise.
Right. I love running. I do. I wish I could do it more. I have my little workout regimen, but I enjoy running. I really do. It's good for me. Have I switched out alcohol for working out? I don't know. I mean, probably not, but if I'm working out, dog, like it feels good. I feel good.
You've switched out a lot of things.
Yeah.
You switched out a whole life. It's a whole
switched out a whole life.
Transplant.
I got this whole new thing going on, dude. I'm silver foxing it over here like George Clooney on fucking welfare. I'm killing it, dude.
But you know what I mean? It's not like one activity for another. It's not like you now... I don't even know.
I get what you're saying, yeah. And so the idea of cross addiction to me is always kind of there are behaviors that we are maybe more susceptible to, but we can also be more aware of those behaviors and see them. Do you know what I mean? So the idea to me is kind of hinky.
Yeah, when people
now, if I gave up drinking and started fucking gambling like a wild person, well, yeah, there's an issue there. Like it's definitely firing off that part of my brain,
right,
that makes things unmanageable for me.
Right.
You know? But
and I want to circle back to our
let's circle back
to our topic. I think two unlikely allies is that when I was drinking, even the people closest to me, I felt were either against me or didn't care about me. So in some respect, or how could they care about me when I'm such a fucking pathetic loser?
Yeah.
How could my mother, actually love me if I'm such a fuck up? Or how could I ever be in a healthy relationship? Because who could love a wretch like me, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
In sobriety, I've become closer to my mom. I've been able to develop a healthy relationship with somebody who I never would have even gotten anywhere near being able to know had I still been drinking. Right. So I think that those unlikely allies can be people who are in front of us. I mean, I know you talk about when you and your wife were at odds near the end of your drinking.
Right.
And that was part of the impetus, I'm sure that was the biggest external one, but
I think that was the tipping point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, it was just everything kind of built up, and that was just kind of where I was like, okay, cool. Here's my reality check. Like, this is where it got really real on me. Yeah.
But as soon as you changed your behavior and started taking control of your life, her attitude and support of you probably changed I don't want to say overnight, but it was certainly developed into something where you're like, holy shit, this person's on my team. And not that you ever doubted it, but there was a point where you were getting ready to fucking quit the team.
I doubted it by the end there, because I was like in that alcohol psychosis where I was like having a lot of fucking paranoia and feeling a certain way. I totally doubted her commitment to Team Jerry at the end there. And the same thing with my parents. I salvaged a lot with them. They loved me and they cared about me even at my worst. They still loved me and cared about me. I was actually enabled a little bit by my mom and dad, I think. A little bit by the end there. Not that I'm saying they're bad people. I'm just saying you always enable the people you love because you love them, And I feel like the depth of our relationship has gotten deeper, The way we relate to each other has gotten a lot better. It is funny, right? Because the subject of unlikely allies, it just seems like you could only be like, well, I go to meetings with all kinds of people, But there's so much more to it than that. There's just so much more depth you can find in people that you couldn't before. Even people who were likely allies, I mean, there's just so much more that you can learn from them. I like learning shit now, man.
Right?
I'm like, oh, that's a lesson. Yeah. It's like even we were talking to Mishka earlier and you're like, you didn't have any questions? I'm like, no, man, I just want to learn. Like, I just want to listen and hear this person's perspective on things, I'm very curious about it. That's why I let you ask all the questions because you ask the good questions. And I'm like, now I get to get a couple more nuggets out of this, and learn something and maybe apply it in my life, I don't know, man, because this is all we got.
This is all we got,
man, during the coronavirus, dude. I'm not even going to yell it like Cardi B, though, but this is all we got during the Rona. We got to learn some shit. Maybe come out of this, we learn some shit instead of all the memes about, like, oh, I day drank and never took off my fucking robe. Like, maybe hopefully I learned something out of this because I don't want to be the meme.
No, I don't be the meme.
Don't be the meme, dude.
Well,
Rage against the meme.
Rage against the meme.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Speaking of unlikely allies, so we're sitting here. We've been doing this for almost 2 years now, Jerry, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
Longer before we hit record. But in that year that you were getting sober and I was still drinking, did it ever occur to you that our friendship would be anything more than peripheral at that point? Like, did you ever imagine? You didn't. I mean, I knew you were busy with your. I'm not. This sounds fucking egotistical now of me.
I wonder what John's up to right now.
Right. I mean, I know that you had your own life to fucking unravel and put back together, but
you got put in that category with all the others while I was getting sober in the beginning. In the sense that I was like, these are people I'm gonna have to eventually say bye to in my own way, because I just can't. I can't manage that lifestyle that they're living. It was like, and actually the funny part is a lot of that group of you that I had put in that box, a bunch of you are sober now, or at least a handful of you don't drink anymore. Yeah, it's really funny because I'm like, oh shit, the drunk that hung out with all the other drunks, all the drunks are realizing they're drunks. You know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't this conscious lopping off of a limb and losing a friendship. It was more like that just subtle ghosting of a friendship that happens. The people that you were closest with in your 20s, well, you tend to like keep those people around a lot, but there are some of those people who
they disappear.
They just disappear. They just fade and they go into their lives. So I thought, well, you're not all immediate in my face, so I don't have to cut you off. I just have to just fade out like a phantasm. Just back in. So that's what I thought was going to happen with you. But I also knew that I knew you were making these hesitation marks in your life. Like you were experimenting with the idea of sobriety and recovery. You had even talked to me about it before I even went in. I got sober. I mean, I think you were talking about it when we were living in Seattle still in the thick of drinking. And you were like, man, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about doing that, or,
Yeah.
So I always knew that it was in there. I just never knew you'd follow through. I never
Me neither.
Follow through. I really didn't. Even as an active drunk, I was like, John's not gonna he's gonna get in the fucking hole with me. We're both in the hole. This is fun. We're all in this hole. There's a shitload of us in this hole together.
Yeah.
And I sobered up, and then you sobered up a year later, and I was like, even then, like, I worry about you guys. Like all my sober friends now, like I do still worry about you. I still think about you now. I don't worry as much as I did in the beginning, but like especially you and I'll just say it, you and Coda. I worried about you guys in the beginning because I was like, don't don't go back, because going back is, listen, if you go back, just realize if you went back, you learned some shit while you were here sober. But don't go back though, because like it's going pretty good for you so far, you know.
Right.
But I worry about me. I worry about everything. I worry about me all the time. I'm like, Jerry, don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? Nobody can say that I will or won't. I'm just here now in this moment. Isn't this like the best form of mindfulness there is? We're just living in this moment, 24 hours at a time. I'm just here in this moment. I cannot tell you that tomorrow I will be sober. I can't guarantee it. I can guarantee I'm sober right now, you know.
I can plan for it and I can prepare for it and all that stuff, but I cannot guarantee that I will be sober in 24 hours.
Because everything's uncertain. It's mindfulness. You're just in this moment, living in this moment. You can plan for things that are coming up. Of course you can, but this has been the best form of mindfulness I've ever practiced in my life. It's just, I am here right now. Mm-hmm. And right now, I ain't fucked up.
Right.
I don't think I will. It's very unlikely I will be fucked up tomorrow, but I can't tell you 100% that I won't be, you know?
It's true, man. Amen.
Yeah.
So they're all around. I just don't judge a book by its cover.
Fuck no. Read the first 30 pages and then you can figure it out.
Right? Yeah, of any book. Yeah. So yeah, man. Unlikely Allies. We got our conversation with Mishka Shubaly coming up right after this, and
get his book. It's a fucking awesome book.
Honestly, so and here's the other thing, guys, and ladies, and it's free. It's on Audible.
Yeah.
It's free. You can, if you go to his Instagram page, you can check out where to get it. But if you just get an Audible account, download his book, and then cancel the subscription. Like that's what I did. And I think you get like whatever it is, you get a free. I don't know how it works exactly, but I
already used my free credit.
Right, yeah, and I downloaded
this other book.
Yeah. So I used all my credits and then I canceled it. So
I'm about to do that right now, actually.
So yeah, and it's so worth reading or listening to, and it's great.
It is, yeah.
I think it's even better to listen to his books than it is. I've read his memoir, but to listen
it's way better. I think it's better to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was better. I don't know, just his voice. He reads the book, so it adds so much more credence because he is feeling it. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's emphasizing his own words. That being said, and not to interrupt you, but one of the things I think I liked the most about it was like a manual. You know, it was like a manual. Like he literally, if I would have had this in early recovery, man, I would have definitely approached my recovery a lot differently. Not that I regret the way I approached it before, but I definitely would have had a different early recovery. Because nobody told me. They just said go to meetings. Get a bag of hard candy and go to meetings. That's all I got, man.
Right.
And don't drink, but go to meetings. And so that's all I got. I didn't get any blueprint, and he's got a great blueprint. Like it's very to the point, very pragmatic.
Yeah, and just
it's my favorite word.
I think I said it in the interview about breaking down the minutia of daily and hourly sobriety in those first 30 days.
I needed that. I didn't get that.
No,
I had to
me
figure
neither.
it all out, man. Yeah, and so I wish it's very valuable, I think, to have in the beginning.
Cool.
To understand exactly what's going to go down.
Right on. All right. Well.
Right on. All right, man.
All right. All right.
All right, then. Fine. Enjoy your core.
Enjoy your core, Jerry. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, you too, John. I'll talk to you later.
And stay tuned for Mishka coming up.
Word.
I'm good. It's already hot as balls here, man.
Well, that's Arizona, right? Jerry, you're from Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Been getting up at 6 a.m. just so I can get a run in before the heat. But I'm just thinking about what the next 4 or 5 months are going to be like. And
yeah.
Yeah.
How far are you running these days on the regular?
I was training for a marathon, and then I had a thought where I was like, I probably shouldn't be to grind out those long runs. You really sort of, if you're doing it right, you really wear your body down. And with the coronavirus shit, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do sort of regular maintenance running right now, and I'll do marathon training when the time is right. So I'm doing 6 miles like 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was feeling the same way, that maybe it was best to not push myself and just keep it at sort of a maintenance pace.
Yeah.
These days. Well, I want to say thanks for doing this, man. I know it's a weird time for people and schedules are inside out and topsy turvy, and but I really appreciate it. And for the listeners who don't know, Mishka Shubaly is a 6-time best-selling Kindle singles
I think it's
author.
7 now. I think it's
7 now.
Damn.
Yeah, gotta get that little correction in there.
Hey man, you earned every single one. He's also an Ivy League collegiate educator and self-professed glorified T-shirt salesman. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But all of that aside, most importantly, I just wanted to talk to you about this new book because as somebody who has, and we talked last year, but as somebody who's gone through recovery and sobriety in a vastly different way, it's always fascinated me how somebody else does their thing, because I think one of the most important things that I took from cold turkey was putting alcoholism on a spectrum, and how it's just the definition of sobriety is different for everybody too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me say too, thank you so much for having me on. I totally appreciate it. And the reason that I'm doing, as many podcasts as I can right now and trying to get the word out is because right now the new Audible original is free for the month of May. If you have a paid Audible membership, you can pick it up for free. It doesn't count as anything. And I feel really shitty that rehabs are a huge for-profit industry, and that so many people are happy to make so much money off of the misery of others. It just feels like war profiteering or something. So I'm super happy that I was able to partner with Audible about this and make it free for this month. So I just want to get it out to people. And, I know that a lot of people have taken different paths to sobriety, than I have. And the point of this, this audiobook is not to tear down AA or any other program that people have used. Whatever works. If it's working for you, it's legit. And I have no questions about it. If it works for you, if you're staying sober, if you're happy, if you're moving forward as a human being, then fucking don't listen to the book. Just keep doing what you're doing, if it's working for you. But there are a lot of people who I think, aren't served by AA for whatever reason, and this is for them, And I just want there to be. And I hope that, a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years from now, somebody comes out and says, oh, Mishka's thing is totally wrong. Here's another way of doing it. Because, every path to sobriety, I think, should be explored and exploited, that we need to give people as many different solutions to this as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, I think another thing you touch on in the book is this idea of these programs, whatever they may be, AA or otherwise, that there's got to be some sort of evolution as we learn new things and new ways of living.
Absolutely. I was thinking about this actually on the run the other day, that I don't trust, I'm a writer, and I don't trust anyone who wants to sort of worship a static reading of a document. You look back at Huck Finn, and it's like, what? My mom read me that book, when I was a kid. I would not read that to a kid right now because some of that stuff is feeling a little bit outdated.
Yeah.
And the shit in religious texts about an eye for an eye, and you'll stone to death anyone who wears a fabric of a cloth of mixed fabric, or like that shit hasn't aged well. So it needs to evolve. Pure and simple. And so I hope that this is an evolutionary step forward.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry and I both went through and are still in AA, and I now going back, I can't imagine not having it to help me through that early time. Now, if I had had your book, I mean, there you go through a lot of what I love about it is you go through a lot of the daily and hourly minutia that nobody tells you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed to hear these things and go like, oh shit, yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Things like passive recovery versus active recovery. And I think I was in passive recovery for like 18 months, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was extraordinarily helpful in that way. And one of the things one of my favorite quotes of yours in this book, and I've heard it before from you, is whatever you want to do in life, alcohol will always get in the way. And I've found that to be 100% true in my life too.
Yeah.
Oh,
There is always some contrarian on Twitter who's like, well, what if you want to be a pants shitting wino? Then, yeah, absolutely, alcohol will facilitate that. I would suggest you set your goals a little higher, you know. Let me return real quick
yeah,
to what you said about, passive and active recovery. And let me just sort of exposit that a little bit for your listeners.
sure.
Basically, passive recovery meaning just that you're not drinking, and that's it. That's the only thing. You're laying on the couch eating ho-hos or ding dongs, or just the worst garbage food. You're playing Call of Duty or whatever, staying up till 4 a.m. You're the only thing that you're doing good is not drinking. And in every other way, sadly, you're probably doing a lot of really shitty stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's passive recovery. That's necessary. Try to
Sure.
keep it to 3 days, right? That should be plenty of time for the alcohol to leave your bloodstream and for you to start sort of like, wondering, what the outside world is like, and then active recovery is playing a role in your life. You don't want to just be an extra in your life. You want to be the main actor, and sort of taking steps to improve your mental fitness, your mental health, your physical fitness, your physical health, repairing relationships with people, building a life that you love. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was like, oh, how are you? And he was like, oh, I'm doing good right now. I just took a bump to perk up my spirits. And I was like, God damn it, dude. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, oh, what would that be like? And honestly, like, I've successfully built a big enough life that I don't have time to relapse right now. Like, I have too much to get done today and tomorrow and the day after and the day after that. I would have to schedule it.
Yeah. Huh.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There doesn't seem to be any room in the schedule as you start stacking all the appointments and interviews and, time for yourself and all that. There's really no time to fall off the wagon, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And and I said this in the book, and I'll say this to you guys too. That like some of my greatest friends, some of the people who have taught me the most in my life, some of the people who have like really, really helped me were hardcore AA people, who went for 10 years, or people who are still going. My boxing partner when I was in Brooklyn, he was just a wealth of knowledge about sobriety and survival, and and a couple other friends. And so, I definitely don't want to shit on AA or anybody who's in AA, because I've absolutely benefited from it, even
Mhm.
without going. There is, it's sort of like the opposite of 400 monkeys in 400 rooms on 400 typewriters. There's like thousands and thousands of very committed people who care very much about repairing their own lives and care very much about their fellow human beings. And there is a ton of wisdom to come out of that. I
Mhm.
don't think it's all in the big book.
No, yeah, I think that when I started listening to the book, and I think early on in Cold Turkey, you start discussing some of your issues with AA, and you're also very clear about how much it's helped in the book as well. So I don't want to misconstrue anything that's been said. But for me, at first, there was a little bit of a twinge, like, hey, what's he saying? This program saved my life. But as I listen to it and try to be objective and respect your opinions about sobriety and alcoholism, I come to find out that there's more to it. There's more than just one way to do this, and that I can incorporate more than just one program in my life to make me better.
There's this great, it's funny, like whenever you publish a book, then you're like, you go back and look at it or listen to it or whatever, you're like, God damn it, I should have put that in there, or I shouldn't have put that in there or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I fully intended to put in that book, and then I don't know, left it out or wrote it on a scrap of paper and threw it away, is there's this great quote about democracy, which is to say that the best way to express your enduring love for democracy is by ruthlessly interrogating it. Mm-hmm. And that's how we build a stronger democracy. And I would submit to you and to all the other people who I love and admire and count on, in AA, that if it feels like I'm attacking AA, I'm not. I'm interrogating it, and I'm interrogating it because I think there's a lot to love there, and I think there's a lot in there that needs to be saved.
And I fully felt that. I mean, that's by the end of the book, I fully felt that. So that did not go unheard by any means.
Great.
I also love this. You call yourself a sober alcoholic. I know that Jerry and I we would say exactly the same thing. Another thing is that you don't have to be an alcoholic to quit drinking. There doesn't have to be this harrowing tale of destruction and mayhem for you to get it out of your life.
Well, I think for many of us too, that we do have a harrowing tale of destruction and mayhem, but alcoholic is such a scary word that people are like, because, there's all these things that people know about alcoholics and alcoholism and a lot of it is just bad information, and so it's like, well, yeah, I have 2 DUIs, but I don't think I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
We're in an era where we're learning the power of language and the power of nomenclature, and and how the specificity of words is important, So I say, if that's a barrier to you quitting drinking, then let's remove that barrier. And just fuck it. Let's not deal with it. You don't need to, you don't need to. I had quit drinking for like 6 or 8 months before I could say, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, and then it took me a while, sort of like having sort of privately figured that out. It still took me a while before I could publicly say, yes, I'm an alcoholic. Now I want fucking everybody to know, because it's like, yeah, I was, and I am, and I have been able to do this. And what's fucking holding you back, man? Get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think too, I mean, for me, calling myself an alcoholic, calling myself a sober alcoholic, recovering alcoholic, also ties into, I think, one of the first themes in your book, which is drop the bullshit. And it reminds me that I need to drop the bullshit about who I am and what I'm capable of, both negatively and positively.
Dude, I was pulling for like drop the bullshit to be part of the title. I feel that so strongly about that. I was thinking about this the other day of like, sort of Keith Richards and then everybody who came after Keith Richards. Like when Keith Richards was coming up, there wasn't this whole sort of like rock star stereotype, right? There wasn't, it wasn't like, because now we sort of know like, oh yeah, you get a pair of leather jeans and then you just live in them for like 8 months at a time, and you fucking snort horse tranquilizers and shoot junk and all that, we have all these things that, this is what makes a rock star, but when Keith was coming up, those are all things he just decided to do on his own, you know?
Yeah.
And we live in a world now where people have a very clear idea of, this sort of, and, either the hot mess for women, the girl who always has a drink in her hand and has the sort of vocal fry and is this like fun train wreck, and then there's the sort of like lonesome hard ass guy with a bottle in one hand, kid, you don't know how hard I've had it, that kind of shit, and how we say that's the thing is like eventually, alcohol stops being a choice and it's just something that you do because you don't know any other way to live. But leading up to that point, there have been many, many times, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times where we did make a choice where we were like, now this will make me cool, or this will make me like her, or this will make me play guitar better, or this will make me relax, or whatever. This will make me into the person I want to be. And like, it's bullshit, it just makes you pathetic,
Yeah.
But we figure that out too late, obviously.
And also,
I just had my coffee. I'm having all these thoughts. I'm going to inflict all of them on you guys.
Yes.
That's fine.
John, I'm not going to apologize to you because this is how I do it. Jerry, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Our first meeting with me, just blurting shit out. Another thing, and and this is one of the things, that alcoholism, it's like the scarlet letter, right? It's that A where you're like branded for life with it.
Yeah.
But also for me at this point, it's not just a mark of shame, it's a badge of courage, that like I went through all that shit and I held myself back and now I'm here and I got through it and I got out of it. And from being an alcoholic, man, I learned how to suffer with grace. And that's how you become a long distance runner. It's just like, holy shit, I drank a fucking bottle of tequila last night. Now my boss is like having me photocopy pictures of his cat to fax to all of his idiot friends because he doesn't know how to use his stupid phone, and you're standing there over this like hot fax machine thing. I'm gonna blow chunks right here over all of this. And when learning to endure that time and time again, it builds strength. And people, alcoholics are weak. We're the fucking strongest people you ever meet. You know how hard it is to keep a job when you're falling apart like that?
Yeah.
Just barely. Yeah, I do. It's 100% true. We put ourselves, it's this whole other kind of endurance race that lasts years sometimes. Yeah. And one of the other things that we talk a lot about on the show, because we're interested in promoting sobriety and the better life like you talk about, but also I got a message from one of our listeners who was asking me, about he's smoking pot because he's trying to, he's quitting drinking and it's really stressful and this, that, and the other, and do I think it's okay to smoke pot? And my initial reaction was, man, that's up to you. Like that is for you to define. Like when I look at it, I could never smoke pot or do mushrooms or any of that stuff again. I know, Jerry, you smoked weed for several months after you quit drinking.
Yeah, right. So I can go to sleep, Yeah.
So I think that another thing is that the definition of sobriety has got to be something personal and something that works for you, because Mishka, like you are not going to have the same experience and the same needs. And, you talk about those hallucinogens that have helped you open up in sobriety, right?
You're going around this. Yes, I use drugs. The word sober is so tricky, man, because if you look it up in the dictionary, it just says abstaining from alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So that leaves open the passive recovery, smoking weed. Also leaves open smoking crack, I was hanging out with a musician I know at a wedding last year, and we were talking. He was like, "Yeah, I'm sober now," and I was like, "Oh man, congrats!" And like 15 minutes later, he had a beer, and I was like, "Bro, like, do I tackle you now? What's?" And he was like, "Oh, no, I quit drinking. Like I just drink beer now," and it's like, so that's not sober, and that's the thing. That's one of the tricky things, is that you do need to define what your sobriety is, but it doesn't fucking change from day to day, you know? And I'll say, like, if you're drinking, you're not sober, you know, like, let's call a spade a spade. If you're drinking, you're not sober. However, you can be drinking and still be in recovery. Because I know who used to drink a bottle of Jack Daniels every day, and now they have a couple of beers, and that's recovery, and that's real recovery. You know, for me, if I know myself and I know how I feel about alcohol still now, 10 years sober, if I had a beer, that would be my undoing. You know, I would go right back to it. But I smoke weed sometimes, to help me get to sleep, to deal with pain, because I'm 43 and I'm still running like I'm 23. And sometimes I smoke weed because I'm bored or I want to play video games or whatever. It's okay to have fun. You know, it's one of the things I talk to when people would like, oh, when you eat mushrooms, you're doing this, you know, with a shame in it. No, man, we're fucking having fun. We tell dick jokes, you know, people laugh. Regardless of what program you subscribe to, fun needs to be a part of your long-term recovery. Because that's what human beings do, you know?
Yeah, and you've touched upon this too, that a lot of this behavior, both good and bad, is not necessarily alcoholic or sober behavior. This is just human beings being human beings, and that's something that I have to remind myself when I don't feel like forgiving myself for being shitty over something, you know, is that I'm just a human being and it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is that it's tricky, but I think at every turn in your life, you need to try to draw a line between alcoholic problems and human problems. I just broke up with my girlfriend. That's a human problem, right? It's not because I'm an alcoholic. It's because I'm a human being, and things weren't working and hadn't been working for a while, you know?
Right.
And so it's real easy for me to go into a shame spiral and say, like, oh, you're fucking damaged and blah, blah, blah. And she said, you know, God, why won't you just get help? And I'm like, I did, and I do. And I was in therapy for a long time, and I will go back. I have great friends. I'm good at being honest about my emotions. Sometimes relationships just don't pan out. In fact, most of the time they don't. It's just a human problem, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's something that I need to remind myself, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I love this. Near the end of the book, you talk about building the big life and finding a sense of freedom. And I think that's something that every person that I know looks for. But that big life, again, is something of your own defining, right? I mean, that's whatever it is that you want. And maybe you could touch a little bit about the big life.
Yeah, people write to me all the time and they're like, hey, how do I quit drinking? And I'm like, well, you know exactly how to quit drinking. You stop doing the thing that you're doing. You know, it's a passive thing to stop drinking. You just don't do it. But what they're really asking with that question is, after you stop drinking, how do you stay sober? What do you do with the time that you have now, that you didn't have before? How do you change the course of your life, you know, so that you're not just going to the bar or going to the liquor store or whatever? And my answer is the big life. You know, when I was talking to my buddy, and he said, oh, I just did a bump and that picked me up, you know, I always follow those thoughts. You know, I'm never like, oh, I can't think that. You know, I always think about like, oh, you know, what would it be like? And because I think it's good not to say like, oh, we need to keep temptation as far away as possible, but instead, you know, it's like your shadow. It follows you everywhere you go. Acknowledge it, that it's there, you know, because if you ignore it, or if you try to ignore it or tell yourself it's not there, then it's going to catch you by surprise. And, you know, what I thought was man, he's doing this in the middle of the day. Like that's gonna be a fucking,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, either he's gonna go off the rails or he's gonna like, you know, he's gonna run out. And why are you snorting anything with coronavirus? This respiratory? Are you fucking, you know, like?
Right.
For me, it's that in the same way that my alcoholism, my drinking pushed all this other shit out of my life, pushed my family out, pushed my friends out, you know, pushed everything out. I mean, even pushed shit like watching TV out of my life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a big life that has helped to push alcohol out, and it keeps it out because I don't have fucking time for it now, man. I'm too busy doing the shit that is rewarding for me and shit that's enjoyable for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just finding finding that sense of freedom. And you know, I just wanted to say one thing before we let you go, is that finding you and your work has really helped me to change my life in a big way, because last time we spoke, I was about 240 pounds and I'm down to 189 now. And I've been, you know, it's been nothing but running and eating vegan basically. And, you know, I still remember the moment where I was listening to The Long Run and I had the shitty sunglasses on that say Veuve Clicquot on the side I got from the bar that I worked at. And I started to cry and I was like, I have to run. And I couldn't run, but I have to run. And like, that's when it started for me. And it was just me with these shitty plastic orange sunglasses crying out there on the road. And you know, you also, one of the first times I reached out to you and you said, if you come to my class at Yale, I will set aside 30 minutes and I'll talk to you about nutrition and getting your weight down. And that was the first time anybody that I didn't know had actually even offered to give a shit about my weight. And so, I mean, yeah, and you said it to me last year. You're like, you did this, John, and I did do it, but you really inspired me in a way.
Again. I was waiting for you to get through this, like, this long thank you, and then say, no, I refuse it. I take zero credit for it. I'm so fucking proud of you, and I'm so happy for you. And I mean, literally a tremendous weight has been lifted from your shoulders and every other part of you. Mm-hmm. But you did all that work, man. I played no part in that. That was you. And right. had I not been around and had my work not been around, you would have found inspiration somewhere else because you were ready to change. You were ready to make that change. Yeah. My writing was one of the tools that you used to make that change, but that's all on you, man.
Fair enough. And the T-shirt I bought from you last year doesn't fit anymore. I'm going to have to buy a new one.
I'm always happy to sell people another T-shirt. That's actually the best reason for me to sell people a T-shirt.
Right. All right. Well, Mishka, thank you so much for your time, man. Yeah. Stay as cool as you can. I know Arizona is no joke, and it's not going to get any better. But stay safe, stay sober. Thank you.
Thanks for taunting. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.